Wait, are you telling me I have to sign paperwork before I even just go look at a house? What? If you have bought a home in the last 10, 15, 20 years, you're not imagining it. The process is extremely different than it used to be in the past. And today I want to explain why it has changed and what you actually need to know before you go looking at homes and what all you need to know as a buyer. So starting from the beginning, in 2024, there was a major national real estate settlement. You may have seen it in the headlines or maybe not, but this national settlement created some new laws. And what they do for you as a buyer is they create transparency, and the transparency of who represents you, how we represent you, what services you're getting as a buyer, and how compensation for the agent that is working for you works. So because of this, buyer-agent relationships have to be in writing. They can't be assumed or just verbal anymore like they have been in the past. We have to make sure that compensation is no longer assumed either. It has to be in writing. It is just really putting all that clarity up front and on the table in writing before we go look at homes. And what really catches buyers right now is that we have to have this before we even look at a house. Usually I would talk to a new buyer, we would go look at a home, and then when we see each other at that first showing, we start a relationship. So it's a little bit different than in the past. We have to kind of go over all of the important and official, paperwork and details before we get that friendly banter going and get to know each other. So it does feel off-putting as a buyer. I understand where you're coming from because I have done real estate a long time before we had to do all of this stuff. And now we have to do all of the formal things that we would do at a time of an offer before we even look at a house. Under today's rules, if I am working for you as your agent, we have to have documentation stating how I am working for you. And we have to have that in place before we show a house. This isn't a personal rule. It's not a 411 rule. I promise you, it's a national legal requirement that I have to follow for the real estate license that I hold. And I also have to comply with state and national rules. So what I think is the big thing that buyers do not realize is by default, buyers are considered customers and they're not clients. And when that happens, you don't have any advocacy. I don't have to keep anything you tell me private, and you don't have anybody that is going to negotiate on your behalf. Like, you really have no one in your corner. So that's pretty dangerous. I can't legally work for you until the contract agreement is signed. And then once we get these documents signed, then everything we have is confidential. I can work for you in a full capacity, and I'm always gonna have your best interest at heart. So I'm gonna simply explain these 3 documents that we have to have. Number 1 is the customer disclosure agreement. This form explains what I do, what I cannot do, and why confidentiality does not exist until I work for you. And what matters is it prevents any misunderstandings right out of the gate. So we're gonna address that first and foremost. The second one is your exclusive right to buy contract. This is the main agreement that officially allows me to represent you, and it explains how long we're working together for. It's gonna have a start and an end date, what types of homes we're looking for. It's going to state if it's in a certain county, a certain town. Usually Northeastern Wyoming is where all my buyers will look, because sometimes they're like, oh, I wanna live in Gillette, and then they end up purchasing something in Warcroft, so it could go anywhere. And we can also edit any of those. Another big part of this form is it lays out how I get paid. So customarily in our area, I will negotiate for buyer's agent's fee to be covered by the seller. That's just how things work in our area. It could be different in different states, but it will line out in this agreement that the buyer's agent gets paid 2.5% or whatever it may be, and what those terms are. So when we go to make an offer, instead of you having to pay that, we're going to negotiate for the seller to pay that. And why this is important, this document is what allows me to fully work for you and guide you through the process. Next is the real estate brokerage disclosure for a buyer. It explains all the possible agencies and how I would represent you in Wyoming. It has buyer's agent, seller's agent, intermediary, or customer. And this document is pretty much only educational. It's going to define what I would do for you in each of those situations and how I work for you. And last but not least, professional services are disclosed, and simply clarifies that I'm not an attorney, I'm not an inspector, I am not an engineer, and I'm not a lender. So if you need to seek any advice from those particular, departments, then you're gonna need to go to that professional. So it just defines the professional boundaries of what I have and what other people have, which you would think would be common sense, but whatever. And why that matters, it just protects you. When you need an expert opinion, you're going to seek advice from the source. So the question I always get is, do I have to pay you now? Not necessarily. The agreement just requires that compensation is discussed, and it's discussed up front. So in northeastern Wyoming, I negotiate the seller to cover buyer agent compensation in most of my transactions. If for some reason it is not covered and you really like this home, we can work something out, but I will let you know upfront so that you can make that decision. You're always going to be informed and you're always going to be in control. Another question I get is, am I stuck if I sign this? Like, am I stuck working with you? No. Agreements can be short-term. They can be location specific or house specific, or even just that one address specific. So it's about clarity and not trapping you. But I'm going to add, most people, when they start working with me, stick with me. So a quick reality check is, I see a lot of buyers right now that are moving into the area, and they will literally call, email, and text a whole bunch of agents. And I don't see that working good for a buyer. It's only gonna hurt you, and no one is truly gonna represent you. It's a small area, so all of us agents will talk, and then you're gonna end up in a really bad situation. You're gonna have no confidentiality. You're gonna have conflicting advice. What I say is probably not what a part-time agent is going to say. You just say it that way. And then you're gonna have a lot of confusion on commissions. What if that person talks to me and I'm the listing agent, and then we think we're working together, and then they also go and talk to another agent, and then all of a sudden they're showing those people and I thought I had shown them. Like, it could be very confusing, and now you have two agents thinking they're owed a commission. That's going to lead to a lot of problems, and sometimes buyers are going to have to pay 2 commissions. So you don't want to do that. Don't go calling all of these agents and just thinking anyone can work for you. When everyone is showing you houses, no one is working for you. Just remember that. So you might run into some agents that are going to skip this annoying paperwork that you're not used to. And those agents who take this protection of you seriously and request this paperwork and do it the right way are going to usually make you have a better, more satisfactory transaction, and you're going to be protected and you're going to get your money's worth out of them. If they're sloppy from the start, they're gonna get messy during the whole transaction. So what you get up front is probably what you're gonna see during the transaction. So if you have somebody that is like me and wanting to get all these documents signed up front the right way, you are going to be handled with some serious care and a lot of integrity through the whole transaction. So I know this feels like it is so much more than it used to be. And let me tell you this way, these documents aren't roadblocks, they're actually the starting line. Once they're signed, I can fully work for you and advocate for you, and we can move quickly. So let's get everything in place, hit the ground running, and go find you the home you're excited about. Thanks for watching.